Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And as always, I remain your host, Darlington. Our guest today is Larry Lawrence Maldenberg. Larry, welcome to the show.
Darlington, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so Larry has spent his life studying one important question: why do successful businesses fail? He's a consultant, speaker, author, fifth generation family business leader with more than 170 years of entrepreneurial experience behind him. Throughout his career, he has launched startups, led mergers and completed turnarounds, and helped organizations navigate complex challenges. His research into business failure led to his book, Businesses Don't Fail, They Commit Suicide: How to Survive Success and Thrive in Good Times and Bad. Here he explores the patterns, decisions, and organizational behaviors that cause companies to collapse, not because they lack opportunity, but because they fail to adapt. Harry, welcome to Control or Be Controlled.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right, thank you so much, Larry, and I hope you enjoyed that introduction.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have some questions here for you, and I would like us to get into them. Your book is titled Businesses Don't Fail, They Commit Suicide. And that's a powerful statement. What do you mean by that? And why do you believe businesses often create their own downfall?
When I started to do this research to try to understand why businesses failed, I was told by many, many people that business failures were due to external circumstances. Things like the environment was bad, the economy was bad. I had many people tell me, and this was way back in the 1970s, that if you were a startup and you made it 3 years, you would be fine, which was just ridiculous to me. That made no sense to me. I thought that was crazy. And I heard a lot of people say they ran out of money, as if that would be a reason why they went broke. And I decided to do research to understand it better. And when I finally understood what the problem was, it makes total sense that they commit suicide. Businesses fail because management makes bad decisions. That's it. There's no other reason. If you say something like we failed because we ran out of money, money is a lagging indicator of prior bad decisions. It's still bad decisions. And when leadership makes decisions that cause their business to fail, that's self-destruction. It may not be intentional. It may not be the desire. But when leadership doesn't do their job properly and they make bad decisions, those bad decisions can accumulate into actual business failure if the mistakes are big enough, serious enough, or costly enough. That's what I mean by businesses don't fail. They commit suicide. They fail because leadership makes bad decisions.
Okay, thank you so much, Larry. So, moving on, you grew up in a fifth generation family business. How did watching your family adapt over generations shape your understanding of success and failure?
Well, I love that question. The concept of failure was one that I had never personally experienced. So it was only something that I heard about or saw, and I found it interesting because my family started in the 1850s selling hides and furs. And first, the business switched from hides and furs as clothing in cold area up in Canada. They moved to Texas and it became hides and furs as fashion. So it was a completely different type of business. And they moved away from clothing into scrap and scrap metal, agricultural and farming. And we transitioned for generations from one industry to another, continuing to serve our customers and continuing to thrive as a successful business. So the concept of what failure was never really came from my family. What I got from my family was two things. The first was a work ethic, the understanding that as the owner, me and my father and his father, etc., we were the ones responsible for that business. That was drilled into me at a very young age, like 8 years old. So the thought of blaming somebody or something for a business failure just made no sense to me. And I was taught that you come to work, you do your job, you do it the best you can, you go home, you rest, you take care of yourself, and you come back and you go to work again. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your work. And if you aren't taking care of your work properly, your business is going to suffer. So that's what they taught me. That's how I learned about business. And it served me very well throughout my life.
All right, Larry, I really think you have a great foundation of this, and it's serving you so, so well. So, uh, you talk about the internal business conflict, the desire for stability in a world that is constantly changing. Why do organizations struggle so much with change?
That's a great question. The reason they struggle so much is related to something that I call the arc of success. Most businesses, most leadership teams develop expertise and knowledge based upon their efforts at their work. They try something, it works. They say, that was good, let's keep doing that. The problem is that success by itself creates change. People think success is this wonderful thing, but success changes the environment you live in, you exist in. What do I mean by that? If you are a business and you have 4 employees and you are successful and you grow to 14 employees, you can't manage 14 people the way you managed 4. And if you grow to 40 or 400 or 4,000, you can't manage those organizations the same way you manage a 4-person business. And it's the same with customers. If you have 10 customers and you're successful and you grow and you have 25 customers, you can't handle 25 customers the same way you handle 10, much less 250 customers or 25,000 customers. So the mere act of being successful changes the environment you operate within. And that means you have to re-verify all of your beliefs, all of your assumptions, everything that you thought worked in the old environment to ensure it works in the new environment and doesn't cause problems. That is the eternal conflict.
Wonderful, Larry. That's so wonderful. Honestly, myself, I never knew uh, about that until you just explained that the internal business conflict. And I think many organizations they struggle so much with this. And so I'm happy that you're able to break this down for me and my audience. Larry, many leaders achieve success and then become vulnerable because of that success. Because why can success itself becomes a threat to businesses?
Well, let me explain something that I found in my research, and this is related to something called corporate life cycle theory, which is the study of how organizations age, how they grow and die. And that was developed in the 80s, and it started to be written about and popularized in the 90s. And it's a fascinating theory, and it's one that's amazingly accurate in terms of how it can document the way organizations change over time. There's a thing that I uncovered called the arc of success. And the arc of success works like this. If someone has an idea and they try it and it works and it's successful, that idea creates demand. Demand creates growth. Growth, as I just said, creates complexity. Complexity creates the need for controls. Controls create a loss of flexibility. So what happens is you start in an environment where somebody can say, hey, I have an idea, let's try it. And if it's successful, eventually the freedom to do that is taken away because of the complexity and the need for controls, which changes the culture. It changes the environment in which people work. It changes the boundaries of what they're able to do and the freedom they're able to have. So if you have people who are used to being in an environment where there's a lot of freedom and not a lot of controls, and they start to have success, those controls have to be put in place or the organization can't survive. And when you put those controls in place, many of the people who were there at the beginning tend to resent it and feel as if they're no longer trusted, or if they're no longer a part of the team because they're being treated like, they have to follow rules they never had to follow before. So that's where the threat comes from. And it affects not just behavior, it affects decision making, but it also affects psychology. It affects how people feel about their job because they start to feel like they're no longer trusted. And that's very difficult to work with.
Okay, Laurie, thank you so much. So moving on, you describe the arc of success as a model for understanding organizational growth. Can you explain the different stages and why companies need to reorganize where they are?
Well, I want to make sure I understand your question, Darlington. Are you asking me why organizations need to reorganize?
Yes, I'm asking you to describe the arc of success. I'm asking you to explain the different stages in the arc of success as a model for understanding organizational growth and why companies need to and why companies need to recognize where they are, what stages that they are in the arc of success as a model for understanding organizational growth.
Well, one of the, if I understand your question, and I apologize if I'm not, one of the examples that I thought was a wonderful example was in the United States, in California. The California state government has its own data center, and they manage all of the healthcare and the insurance needs and all of the retirement funds for all the public employees. It's called the Public Employees Retirement System. And the data center is where all of that data has been stored. And that data center had not changed since technology first started appearing in the state in the 40s and 50s. And the definition of the largest database was 1 million records or more. In today's world, it's easy to have 1 million records on a watch that has email built into it. 1 million records is nothing. That data center had never structurally changed the way they operated. And they ended up developing 55 standalone programs to do 55 different tasks for 29 different divisions within that agency. Each one was disconnected. So there was duplication of data. When information changed, people didn't know where it all lived, so they would have to go search to make sure all of the records got properly updated. And the way that the data center was managed was completely ineffective for being an information technology center. It was fine for a data center, but for an IT shop, it didn't work. For example, if management needed a report on something, no one knew where to go to get it. And the data often lived in many different databases, many different applications. Some of them were custom and some of them were bought off the shelf. I was involved in the re-engineering of that data center from 2010 to 2014. And we went from just about 400 employees to about 650 employees. We went from 2 divisions and 8 sections to 5 divisions and 30 sections. We changed the job descriptions of every single employee from top to bottom. And we re-engineered the way the entire organization works, replacing all 55 of those standalone systems so that management could come to the data center, to the IT shop, and say, we need this information, or we need to provide this service. We need you to do it. And they were re-engineered so that they were able to do it in the modern world. Now, I hope that answers your question, but that's a classic case of how an organization didn't change its structure, its operating structure, and was unable to serve its clients. And by the way, that was a $1 billion project. That was $350 million on organizational change and job description change and transition of responsibilities, and another $750 million for a custom for a enterprise relationship system, an ERP system developed by Accenture. So it was a big project.
Wow, wonderful. And that actually answers my question. But I think, yeah, it was broad. The answer was very, very broad. Uh, but I'll take that. Thank you so much, Larry. Okay, Larry. So, tell us some characteristics of a mature organization, and tell us what separates businesses that continue evolving from those that stay stuck.
So there are 3 stages of organizational maturity that my research uncovered, and I label them youth, adolescence, and adulthood. They are defined by the depth and breadth of experience, not expertise, not knowledge, not skill, actual hands-on experience actually doing work. So youth is shallow and narrow. Organizations that are in youth stage don't have a lot of experience outside their core skill. Let's say you're a candle making company. You don't make wicks, you don't make candle molds, you don't do other things with wax. All you do is buy bulk wax, buy molds, buy dyes, and produce candles. And you haven't done it for very long, so you don't have a lot of experience with things going wrong. That's narrow and shallow experience. As you age and time passes, you accumulate experience. So your breadth does not expand initially, but your depth does. You begin to see more circumstances that are unique or different. You get more customers, different problems arise, and you have to learn how to deal with them. So your experience gets deeper, not broader. That's adolescence. And when you finally become mature, you become an adult, that's when you start expanding the breadth of your experience. You might say, we've been very successful with candle molds. Now we're going to buy a manufacturing company to make candle molds. Let me give you an example. This is one of my favorite examples, and it's a restaurant example. A friend of mine had an inexpensive coffee shop, and he had opened about 7 of them. And he was very, very proud of them. He went out of his way to provide outstanding service and exceptional quality. And he was having trouble getting quality meat from his meat supplier because he had such a high demand as he grew his restaurants. The supplier couldn't keep up. So he had to start buying meat from other suppliers, and he was getting inconsistent quality. So not only would there be, less quality meat at one location, but there would also be a variation of quality at a single location. So what did he do? He bought a meat packing company. That's expanding your breadth. Has nothing to do with restaurants. But he bought a meat packing company as a mature organization so that he had better control over the quality of his beef and what he actually served to the customers that came to eat. Now, that's youth, adolescence, and adulthood, breadth and depth of experience. Organizations in youth always fail because of a lack of clarity of purpose. They do not understand why they're in business. They do not understand the value that their customers expect from them. And they do not understand what they want to be in the long term. Let's say I continue to deliver value to my customers year after year. What good does that do us as an organization? Where are we headed? Organizations in adolescence always fail because of a lack of consistency of performance. This is where you end up with 2 or more people doing the same job, and some jobs falling through the cracks and nobody does them. Adolescence is dependent on the ability to make promises to customers and to vendors and to employees that you can live up to every single time. When you go to a McDonald's, it's not quality food. It's bad food. But when you go to a McDonald's in any country, anywhere in the world, you know what you're going to get, and you get the same thing every single time. They have a university to teach people how to make hamburgers. How hard is it to make a hamburger? They're obsessed with consistency of performance. They want to make sure that when the customer walks in that door, they get exactly what they expect. So it's not about quality. It's about consistency, meeting expectations, making commitments and fulfilling them. And adulthood is a little tricky. Adulthood is lack of engagement of people. That's when organizations fail. As organizations get larger, the need for employees to truly take ownership of their jobs, their roles, their tasks, their activities, and to make sure they're doing them well becomes more and more important because management and supervision gets further and further away from each individual. And you have to remember that the only people that actually touch the customer are the people who are on the front lines, selling, delivering, supporting. And those people on the front lines over time get further and further away from leadership as well. So when an industry starts to change, if there isn't integration and engagement of staff, leadership never finds out about it. It doesn't pass up through the organization because the employees aren't respected. The employees don't feel like they have a stake in ownership. They don't feel like they have a responsibility, and they don't feel like anybody cares. And that's what happened to a company in America called Sears. They were around for over 100 years, and the market they served shifted from one type of clothing and product to another, and the organization didn't change with their market. So the market just stopped doing business with them, and Sears went bankrupt. That's organizational maturity.
So, in a nutshell, organization, in a nutshell, this simply means that the ability for them to be able to solve problems and issues when they arise is organization maturity, right?
Right.
Okay, Larry, thank you so much because you use a lot of leadership terms and a lot of people might not understand. So I love to always break it down so that the average listener can know what you are saying. So, Larry, you argue that business plans and marketing plans should be disconnected from each other, and why many people believe they shouldn't. I would like to know why you believe uh, separating them creates better outcome for businesses.
It's a very good question, Darlington. I don't get asked that very often, so you've done your homework. Thank you. The business plan is the document that describes what the organization is going to do over some period of time related to money and sales. Typically, it's a year. Some businesses do it monthly, some do it quarterly, some do it every 5 years. But most businesses around the world do a 1 year plan. And it talks about what they're going to do new, what they're going to do different, how the organization's going to change, what they're going to pursue, what their financial expectations are. It talks about all of the things in the operating environment of the organization. The problem is that if you're living in an environment that gets cold and gets hot, when it's hot, you sell things to people to stay cool, but you don't sell it year round. When it's cold, you sell things to people to help them stay warm, but you don't sell it to them year round. So you need to have a marketing plan that speaks to your customers about staying warm when it's cold, not on your calendar year, not on your fiscal year. And that needs to have its own timeline, its own period of from and to. It needs to start when it's time to start buying the products that you're going to sell, and ends when you close those products out at the end of the season. And you need a different marketing plan for all of the things that you sell to the people who need to stay cool when it gets hot, which is a whole nother season. So those marketing plans need to be tailored to the seasonal variations of the time of year when they're actually in demand and used, so you can be prepared to deal with them when the need arises, as opposed to just looking at the overall business over the course of the calendar year.
All right. Thank you so much, Larry. So, I know I had to do my homework to be able to get this because I know many people might think they need to be together. And when I saw that you have a different belief, I said, "Oh, let me share this perspective with my audience." All right. So for a leader listening today who wants to prevent their company from committing suicide, what warning signs should they look out for?
So I have three very common signs identified in my book. And one of the first things that starts happening, primarily in youth, is that a problem will arise and management will try and fix it. And the problem seems to go away at first, but then it comes right back again. And no matter what you do to fix the problem, you don't seem to be able to get it fixed for good. Maybe you've got turnover that you try to change the way you recruit employees. You go through management training, but you still keep losing employees and you can't understand why. Maybe you're getting orders wrong and you're shipping orders out and customers are complaining, but you try to fix it and you can't. That's a very sure sign that you're working on fixing symptoms, not problems. And what you have to do when a problem comes up is you have to stop and say, I see the problem. What's causing it? And we call it the rule of three. You have to say that 3 times. What's causing it? Oh, this. Oh, well, what's causing this? Oh, that. Well, what's causing that? Something else. Because you're never going to fix the problem if you're only looking at the surface. That's the first one. The second one is people tend to get in habits. People tend to say things like, we've been very successful doing this. We need to keep doing it because it worked before. And they resist change. And the problem is what I talked about before. The environment isn't the same. The environment has changed because it's more complex. So every time you believe that you've got a process or a system that you think is good and needs to stay in place and not be changed, you need to really do thorough analysis of it to make sure that you're not actually harming yourself by not updating that policy, updating that process to account for the changes, the structural changes your organization is dealing with as it's growing, as it's becoming more successful. And the third thing that's extremely common is you have long-term employees who resist change. They'll say, I've always done it this way. It's always worked for me. I don't need to change. Leave me alone. That's a sign that you've got people who aren't able to adapt to the future needs of your customers and the future needs of your organization. And it's particularly painful, especially in smaller organizations, because many of these people have been with your organization for many, many years. And you've bled and you've struggled and you've suffered and you've succeeded with them. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And that's always a very difficult period.
All right, Larry, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this episode. It has been so fascinating having this conversation with you. Thank you for sharing your decades of experience and the lessons you have learned from both building businesses and studying why they fail. Your message is a reminder that success is not a destination. It requires constant awareness, adaptation, and the willingness to challenge what has always been done. For those who would like to learn more about your work and your book, Businesses Don't Fail, They Commit Suicide, how can they do that?
Well, there are 2 ways. The first is you can go to any online bookseller and find the book. It's fairly easy to find. Businesses Don't Fail or Commit Suicide. You need to be careful and you need to stay in business books so that you don't get into the psychological books about actual suicide. The other thing is to go to my website, and it's mandelberg.biz. And on that website, there are over 100 blog posts that talk about all of these issues. There's a link to the book. There's all kinds of feedback from employees. I talk about all kinds of things that people can do. And the most important thing is that anyone can schedule a 20-minute discovery session with me for free from that website. And I'm happy to share whatever I can at no charge.
Okay, thank you so much once again. This has been so thrilling and fascinating. And to my audience, thank you all. Thank you for listening to Control or Be Controlled. I know this conversation gave you a new perspective on leadership, entrepreneurship, and building organizations that last. Share this episode with another business leader out there who needs to hear this. Until next time, remember, what we refuse to change can eventually become what controls us. Thank you, Larry, for coming to my show, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Darlington, and best of luck to all your listeners.
All right, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.